Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Knuckles the Echidna here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic & Knuckles, or should I say Sonic & Knuckles standalone version for the Sega Mega Drive / Sega Genesis. So, last time, we essentially did manage to complete the entire game as Sonic the Hedgehog by going into not only, for the sake of the forms of Lava Reef Zone, in addition to Hidden Palace Zone, Sky Century Zone, Death Egg Zone, and of course the Doomsday Zone, which is only accessible if you do manage to collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds as Sonic. So, all in all though, we did that particular playthrough quite well, even though despite the fact that we accidentally come across into our first death of the playthrough, during the forms within Death Egg Zone Act 1, probably because I wasn't hesitating for certain hazards and all that stuff. So anyway, so that pretty much does it from there. So yeah, today for this video is that we're about to begin the second playthrough in Sonic & Knuckles, and this time we're going to be playing as myself, in some cases Knuckles down here. So as a result though, it's about the fact I'm pretty sure we're going to be going through the exact same levels as before, but there are some alternative routes that normally Sonic cannot go into. And also when you start the game as Knuckles, right here, basically though we get ourselves the cinematic cutscene where it involves around Knuckles got ambushed by the forms of the Egg Robo. So it's up to Knuckles to able to stop the Egg Robo before he just trying to able to plan to do some evil schemes and stuff like that. Much like the forms of Dr. Robotnik or Dr. Eggman every nowadays though. So anyways though, by the way though, something you might able to actually realize about this is about the fact that for the sake of this part anyway, I'm not just by myself, because as far as I'm aware, there's apparently yet another character that's going to be introduced in the Mexi Toys crew, so no matter what though, yeah, there's apparently going to be yet another Mario character that's going to be appeared during the films of this video, for now anyway, until eventually she'll become a lot more stable in the future. So yeah, I would like you all introduce yourselves. Hiya, I am Pauline right here, and I'm the one and only who managed able to sing Jump Up Superstar from Super Mario Odyssey, and every nowadays I've become a lot more famous now in regards to the forms of playable Mario spin-off games, ranging from, you know, Mario Tennis Aces, Mario Golf Super Rush, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in Booster Course Pass Wave 6, and on top of that, Mario Strikers Battle League Football, and now Super Mario Party Jamboree. So, hey, what's up, Knuckles? What have you been doing all of a sudden? Well, basically, if you couldn't tell, Pauline, is that we're going to be experiencing certain Sonic games again, but usually, relatively speaking, we're more able to do the exact same scenario as the forms of some Mario Let's Plays in the past. Like, we have decided able to tackle through multiple versions of some of these games, not all of them, mind you, but most of them. So, for instance, though, if you couldn't tell, I'm going to be trying to go after all 7 of these Chaos Emeralds again, except this time, I'm going to be playing as myself, in some cases, Knuckles the Echidna. Oh, I see. So basically, though, it's about the fact I've heard that you and the other crew did manage to able to did done a lot of Let's Plays so far. Like, what kind of Let's Plays did you do? Well, basically though, Pauline, we did somehow manage to able to did done the majority of the Mario games, ranging from the 2D Mario platformers, 3D Mario platforming games, in addition to Mario Kart, Mario Party, some sports, and on top of all that stuff though, other miscellaneous stuff ranging from Luigi's Mansion and Princess Peach games so far, for the sake of Princess Peach Showtime, but eventually at some point we will do Super Princess Peach until next year, for celebrating its 20th anniversary for the Japanese version anyway, and on top of that with the Yoshi games, Donkey Kong games, and Wario games. I mean, there's so much Let's Plays that me and Sonic and the others were possibly trying to think about something, so generally speaking though, and occasional moments about the fact that we also did manage to able to tackle through some other games as well, ranging from movie time games, like for instance, for example, we did done Rio for the Xbox 360 / PlayStation 3 / Nintendo Wii versions most likely, and on top of all that stuff, there's also DreamWorks Ants for the Game Boy Color, and as well as that though, Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 3 video game versions, not Toy Story 4, mainly because as far as I'm aware, due to licensing of the Disney Interactive has well, discontinued or something. So, I might be wrong, but regardless of everything else though, let's just go and get into this bonus stage quickly so I can able to grab some more rings, and maybe try to get the shield every once in a while, just for the sake of, like, protection for, you know, don't get hit so many times. So, and also, as far as I'm aware, that unlike in Sonic's playthrough though, that the entire playthrough is actually quite lengthy for Sonic's playthrough, so my guess is about the fact that with Knuckles' playthrough, it's going to be slightly shorter than he finds of how it does in Sonic's playthrough, because as far as I'm aware, Sonic did somehow manage able to, well, face off against with multitude of bosses, whilst unlike me, I'm might as well able to come across into some minimum amount of bosses, although we might come across into some familiar ones from the likes of not only from Mushroom Hill Zone, but alongside with the forms of Flying Battery Zone, Sandopolis Zone, and one of those acts in Lava Reef Zone, basically. So either way though, how'd you manage to know any other knowledge for the sake of time, Knuckles? Well, kind of thing about it though, Pauline, is about the fact that, well, we already know about any other facts in regards to the forms of not only for Mario stuff, but alongside with Sonic stuff, and especially noticeable with the Legend of Zelda stuff, and especially noticeable with Metroid, Kirby, and Crash Bandicoot, you name the rest. Mind you, about the fact that we still haven't got around on doing not only Crash Bandicoot, but alongside with the forms of Spyro the Dragon stuff, in addition to Rayman stuff as well, because as far as I've heard anyway, that next year is going to be the 30th anniversary of the existence of Rayman, alongside with the films of Toy Story, as far as the actual film franchise as far as this is concerned. I mean, geez, time flies, you know, especially concerning for the fact that after all, we've been busy playing through some other titles as well on our spare own time, ranging from, you know, Mario Luigi Brothership, and on top of that, Super Mario Party Jamboree, as you mentioned earlier, in addition to Sonic X Shadow Generations for doing the practice run, specifically the Switch version and the Xbox One version, because as far as what Shadow or Silver or Sonic did somehow already explain about this, they all saved the PlayStation 4 version for the sake of the Let's Play. So, just like the forms of how it doesn't, son of a biscuit! Okay, let me just go ahead and trying to find us another giant ring right here, and in fact that was actually a pretty close call in my part, because if I do die at one point, then I have to go all the way back to where the checkpoint was. So, oh, that reminds me, after I've somehow complete this special stage, something tells me I might as well get ambushed by one of those random enemies, specifically something relates to the centipede one or something like that. Well, mind you, it does have wings though, so I can totally see why you're gonna be bring it up, especially concerning for the fact that, well, as far as I've heard anyway, that Knuckles' mode, or specifically Knuckles' playthrough in Sonic & Knuckles, alongside with Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Knuckles is often considered to be the hard mode of the game, mainly because, as far as you probably already know, that basically though, Knuckles cannot jump nearly as high compared to Sonic or Tails on Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined, in addition to Sonic Mania as well, and maybe potentially Sonic Superstars as well. I mean, no matter what though, you haven't exactly tackled Sonic Superstars just yet, as far as I've heard. Well, not exactly, Pauline, because you see, we're most likely going to be focusing on, you know, trying to able to practice the forms of Sonic X Shadow Generations first, before we dive into other Sonic games, you know, including, come on! Whatever, I might as well take a life anyway, so, and has pushed me all the way back here, so, I suppose it really doesn't matter too much, because after all, I've already managed able to get 3 Chaos Emeralds so far, so naturally, only 4 more Chaos Emeralds left. So, generally speaking, I'm pretty guaranteed about the fact that I'm, you know, trying to get the 7th and the final Chaos Emerald during the Forms of Flying Battery Zone, much like the Forms of how it does in Sonic's playthrough. So, I mean, possibilities were endless though, especially sometimes though about the fact that I will mention though right away, it's been about 5 days ago since I actually memorized any other specific special stage locations for the likes of the Forms of Mushroom Hill Zone, or generally speaking, it's been about a week ago at this rate. So, but anyways though, A few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, is the 19th of November today, in some cases in 2024 today, so it may look like we've only got about 12 more days to go until we're about to be approaching onto the final month in 2024 before we move on to 2025, and that's, of course, December. And meanwhile, on the subject for this matter though, I'm pretty concerned about the fact that we've only got about exactly 31 days to go until Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, is finally going to be releasing on the big screen, alongside with Mufasa the Lion King, of course. Oh, what's wrong with that film, huh? Well, you see, Pauline, is that every once in a while, though, in Journey films have been the later years to come. Well, technically, it all started in Journey films have been 1996 or something, or technically 1994 anyway, where basically, though, Disney decides they're able to actually do some abundance of films based off from remaking certain beloved Disney classic movies into live-action adaptations. And let me tell you, you're not be missing by much. Well, apart from few exceptions, which appears to be, I would say Cinderella 2015 version is alright, and I would say the Jungle Book 2016 is also alright, but as far as everything else goes, they messed up with our nostalgia. Oh, I see where you get the idea for the sake of time. Especially that for what I've heard about the fact that the next live-action movies is about to be on its way for the likes of not only for next year, but a couple of years' time. So generally speaking of that, for what I've noticed that, yeah, you did mention about Mufasa the Lion King is going to be also going to be on its way as well. Well, I would classify if able to try to see it in day one, though, apparently though, Pauline, because let me tell you, I'm so sick of the films, those Disney live-action movies at this point. Although, if it does turn out to be alright, I might give it the actual film a benefit for the doubt, which, then again though, I might as well spoke too soon on that part, especially concerning for the fact that after the events of, last year's The Little Mermaid remake, I mean, have you ever seen that particular remake before? I've heard about it, but I do sort of believe that it doesn't really match compared to the films of how it does in how beloved 1989 version of The Little Mermaid, or in some cases the beginning of the best era of the Disney movies, which is of course the Renaissance era, so, which I definitely know about, so anyways though, and also, back into what I was saying about the films of this particular topic at this point, Knuckles. In fact, kind of thinking about it though, I always have fully appreciated about the fact that you guys are obviously doing really well in regards to the films of not only trying to concentrate on certain tougher games in the past, ranging from, for what I can tell, that you did manage to able to tackle through not only the Castlevania games, but alongside with the films of Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, specifically though, not only the Super Mario All-Stars version, well mind you, it was actually a bit tad easier compared to the films of how it does in the original version on the Famicom Disk System, but also, as far as I'm aware, you also did tackle the original version, am I right? Well, yes, indeed. And in addition to that, though, we also did manage to able to tackle through, let's just say, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, thanks to Silver the Hedgehog, did somehow tackle for that game. And let me tell you, that game is brutal, especially concerning if you really want to get certain progression, well, you just got able to just, well, hope for the best, trying to able to survive as many of those specific encounters as much as you can. So, yeah, that's what I can really think about that. So, dang it, I messed up with that particular alternate route I need to take. Again, it's probably because sometimes though, that again, it has been about a week ago since I actually memorized any other special stage locations in Mushroom Hill Zone, which I know it's definitely still possible that you can able to actually get every single Chaos Emeralds, or Super Emeralds for that matter, if you play on Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined, but it's just about the fact that no matter what though, I really do miss playing as Tails in Journey films of finding those specific special stage rings, but I suppose Knuckles can be okay though, aside from the fact that sometimes though, again, it's all about memorization, you know? So anyways, let's move on to the next special stage right here, where everything else is entirely linear, and is especially noticeable you have to avoid a lot of those yellow spheres, because if you dare touch any of them, aside from few of those yellow springs, then you should be okay. So, as long as you were able to actually ignore collecting those rings, unlike the forms of how it does it in Sonic Mania, that if you really want to go for a true 100% completion, well, good luck on that, especially concerning for the fact that if you really want to able to guarantee to get every single gold medallions, well, you have to be sure you need to be master at the forms of specific special stages or bonus stages for that matter when it comes to blue spheres and stuff. So anyway, the next thing I want to point things out actually is about the fact that speaking of something relates to The Legend of Zelda, from I've heard, that it may look like that The Legend of Zelda live-action film is going to be released before the end of the decade. Means it's like 2020's decade. So we're not exactly sure when it's going to be releasing exactly, but my guess for my predictions anyway, it's going to be releasing during around that time when The Legend of Zelda is going to be celebrating its 40th anniversary until 2026 if possible, since 1986 for the Famicom Disk System or Nintendo Entertainment System if you lived in not only in America but in European countries as well, despite the fact that getting the actual physical cartridge these days, when it comes to The Legend of Zelda the original, alongside with Zelda 2, it's actually going to get ridiculously overpriced these days, even if you're trying to go after complete in-box, alongside with the forms of the cartridge-only versions. So, I mean, I could possibly try to think about the forms of the cheapest option. I could probably go for those, two of those physical games for that matter, for the sake of collection's sake, but for now, no, just because no matter what though, we are still trying to able to predict about the forms of what the last final Nintendo Switch 1 games will be revealed. Like, we already know for the fact that we've only got about technically 4 games left. In terms of, you know, Nintendo released games for the Nintendo Switch 1, which appears to be not only Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, but alongside with the forms of Pokemon Legends ZA, and of course, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, I should say, and finally, of course, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and maybe they'll try to bring some more surprises here and there, but then again, we shall wait and see what happens, especially considering for the fact that the next and probably the final gaming event we can probably expect to come, that's what appears to be the Game Awards. Oh yeah, the Game Awards, that basically though it does manage to give not only nominations for certain games, but alongside with the forms of some true winners of each and every single category. So yeah, I definitely heard about that particular event coming up. So, and as far as I'm aware, yeah, I did somehow got the perfects, which means, of course, much like in Sonic 3, standalone version, you get yourselves extra additional points, and you can get yourselves a freebie 1-up, and of course, to continue if you get 50 rings in the special stages for that circumstances. So, but anyways though, so let's just go and hop on here. So just to ensure I need able to get one of those 2 shields I do need to acquire for able to actually take on the very first boss in Knuckles' playthrough. Now I'm sure enough though is about the fact that the main threat this time around though is not Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik, if you prefer calling him that, but usually you might as well find out as soon as we're able to make our way. Oh, that was a pretty interesting monitor bounce technique while gliding. So anyways though, so let's go and take on the first boss in Knuckles' playthrough, and it may look like it's the Egg Robo. So yeah, we need to take this guy down, just to ensure for the fact that before we move on to the next level. So, and certain bosses might get a little bit tricky at one point. Well, not exactly for the Sonic and Knuckles standalone version, I will admit it though right away. Unlike in Sonic 3 and Knuckles though, on the other hand, it does manage to bring up a lot of challenge when it comes to certain bosses plays out. But either way, Mushroom Hill Zone is completely done. And we'll see that zone again until Sonic Generations for the 3DS version, because, well, if you don't account the forms of mods for the PC version of Sonic Generations, and even nowadays with Shadow Generations, they somehow recently added in character mods in addition to certain levels based off from, well, I do know there's actually one mod that has actually been out there for one of those levels based off from the cyberspace levels from Sonic Frontiers, and that's what appears to be Internal Highway, which I think that's what it says anyway. But anyways though, let's grab the electric shield and the invincibility, which as a result, yeah, Knuckles is the only one who's gonna make it for this section, because unlike Sonic, cannot reach up there. So unless if you're trying to able to activate the debug feature, which I still, for the life of me, cannot able to actually figure out how to able to unlock the debug mode, not only for the sake of the forms of the original Mega Drive versions of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, but as well as Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic & Knuckles standalone versions, but we do know how to activate it on the forms of Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined. So, well, usually relatively speaking, it's probably because no matter what though, we're pretty much used to with, you know, messing around with the forms of debug mode for the likes of the remastered versions these days, thanks to the forms of Sonic Origins, and even with the forms of Sonic Mania as well. So either way though, chances are though, we just like to mess around on things to see how you can able to, you know, finish the level as quickly as possible, and you probably need the rest. So, although, is that allowed, by the way? Well, kind of thing about it though, it will be kind of, you know, fun to able to actually explore around on certain aspects or anything else like that. I mean, mind you, oh jeez, oh man. Yeah, I can totally get the idea what you said earlier about the fact that, well, we're constantly forms of playing as Knuckles in this game. Basically though, in addition about the fact that he can able to glide, and he can also climb onto specific walls, that he can able to actually reach higher places, and not to mention though, as you mentioned this earlier, that Knuckles cannot jump nearly as high as Sonic. So, and as far as I'm aware, Knuckles doesn't have extra the amount of abilities from the sake of the forms of one of those elemental shields, so yeah, I was not able to stick around with the forms of gliding from now on. So, although thankfully though, since we actually somehow got the flame shield from earlier, so this means we somehow fully protected for those flamethrowers. So, but still need to watch out for not only certain missiles coming from those specific walls, but in addition to the forms of those propellers. So, because if you dare touch them, that will also hurt you. So, but I digress. So, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that, well, we actually got ourselves quite a few interesting things I would like to discuss upon, actually. That's what involves around with the forms of this particular upcoming opening day, for the sake of the forms of the Donkey Kong Country portion of the Super Nintendo world in Japan. So no matter what though, as you probably expect, that particular Super Nintendo World Direct has already came up ever since around 8 days ago, roughly, at this point. And basically though, Shigeru Miyamoto is once again the host of that particular Direct, ever since in the forms of not only since the previous Super Nintendo World Direct back in 2020, but also with the forms of the most recent one at the time, which appears to be the Nintendo Museum. So generally speaking, he did mention about the forms of how in fact it's nice to be back in Journey forms of in the Super Nintendo world in Japan. Although it's to be more specific than that he's now going to call the forms of the Mario section the Super Mario Land portion, but now he actually ended up in the Donkey Kong Country location. And as a result, though, whenever we did manage to check out the forms of that particular attraction itself, it looks super duper cool with the Donkey Kong Country themed section. Like, he did mentions about the fact that he did somehow manage to able to point out that there was actually the roller coaster, which appears to be called Donkey Kong Country Minecart Madness, which is actually the exactly same name as the forms are based off of one of those levels from Donkey Kong Country 1. And generally speaking, I am very excited to know how that's going to be, turns out to be, in the forms of that particular point of view kind of perspective. And in addition to that, though, is about the fact that he also mentions about the fact that there's going to be some cool activities there, such as, for instance, there's the Donkey Konga Bongo section, and you have to do with a specific rhythm timing thing, because once you've done so, then you would be able to try to get one of those. Actually, kind of think about it, it will actually reveal something out of it, which appears to be none other than Rambi, the rhinoceros, ever since in Donkey Kong Country, all the way up to Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. So, yeah, I don't think it's possible we can able to see certain animal buddies from this good old Super Nintendo titles or anything else like that. Like, I don't think they'll try to bring back Ellie the elephant, or especially noticeable with the forms of Rattle the rattlesnake, and there's also going to be the spider animal buddy, which I know for a fact, I'm sure enough though, that Silver will definitely come back into the forms of Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Game Boy Advance, probably until next week from now on, so just I'm sure for the fact that he will be able to get back on track for any other scenarios like this. So anyways though, and also about the fact that yes indeed, much like the forms of how it does with the key coins that you do somehow get if you try to able to actually do certain challenges in the Mario portion of the Super Nintendo world. Basically, that was about the fact that if you do manage to find the K, O, and G letters, you can obviously use the power-up band to able to actually claim one of those Kong letters. In addition to that, though, you get yourselves a nice little stamp as well, just like the forms of how it does in the Mario portion of the park. And of course, not to mention though, is about the fact that just like in the Mario portion of the park, basically though, every once in a while though, we can able to meet up with not only Donkey Kong as the mascot costume, but in addition to that though, I'm really hoping that Diddy Kong will also make an appearance for that particular point. But then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens, especially that not to mention though, the release date has already been confirmed for the sake of the opening day, which actually as it turns out is going to opening up until the 11th of December in 2024. So that's going to be roughly about 9 days before Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie is going to be on its way on specific countries, ranging from the United States and the UK as well. In addition to that, though, is about the fact that there's also going to be around that time where it's going to be 2 days before, not only for the sake of the forms of the Game Awards, according to the forms of the time zone, but in addition to that, the movie Sonic pack for the likes of the forms of Shadow Generations, most likely. And I think it could be, well, it's hard for me to explain, because I know for a fact it's been quite a while since I actually have last mentioned something related to the Sonic Movie 3 pack DLC for Sonic X Shadow Generations, because we still have no idea what the level itself is going to be called. Well, we do know for a fact it's going to take place in Tokyo, of course, you know, with that particular scene from the movie trailer. So anyway though, oh, and another thing is you might want to know about for the sake of the forms of the movie trailers and stuff. Well, it may look like about the fact that the next trailer for a Minecraft movie is going to be on its way later today, and let's just hope about the fact that that particular trailer will be a little bit better than the forms of how it does it on the first teaser trailer, because I already know for a fact that there's a lot of negativity going on in regards to the forms of the teaser trailer for a Minecraft movie, especially because, you know, live action real people didn't blend very well in terms of the forms of trying to transport it into the Minecraft world. I mean, we shall see what happens in due time, although I suppose I should probably mention more about it, probably at some point until on this Thursday coming up, so... Jeez, Knuckles, that was actually a lot of information you somehow got at this point, when it comes to likely discussing upon what's going to be coming up, in addition to the forms of other stuff worth noting for. In fact, you should be likely a news reporter or anything else like that. Well, I could agree more for the sake of time, Pauline. And in fact, one thing I will say to you for the sake of time, Pauline... Oh, what's that, you might say? Well, you do kind of remind me of the forms of one of those characters in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Oh, what character what that will be? Well, it was actually by the forms of Roger's wife called Jessica Rabbit, where basically though you have the exact same overalls as, you know, Jessica Rabbit. Oh, I can totally get the idea, but except the fact I don't have any attitude, unlike the forms of how it does it for that Jessica Rabbit for the likes of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I know for a fact I'm look a bit slightly similar, but I don't usually have a love interest with a rabbit, because aside from all that stuff though, I'm perfectly fine to become Mario's friend after all, because after all, that he still loves Princess Peach of all things. So, and also, I am still a part of the forms of the mayor kind of support, which I know for a fact that I'm still, you know, always attempt to be busy, decide able to sing along to the forms of Jump Up Superstar for about so many times at this point. I mean, I already know for a fact that a lot of Mario fans out there will so desperately want able to see something brand new from Mario at some points for the future, mainly with the forms of the brand new 3D Mario game, and not to mention though, they all so desperately want a brand new Mario Kart game now. I mean, generally speaking, I was about the fact that they'll try to save those two projects up for the upcoming Nintendo Switch successor, which, again, we still have no idea of when exactly that's going to be releasing. So, yeah, because there are so many rumors and leaks 24/7 in regards to the forms to try to mention about the forms of Nintendo Switch successor, which, not to mention, though, is probably because no matter what, though. Well, thankfully, though, we did at least got one new thing at the time, which appears to be they somehow confirmed the backwards compatibility with Nintendo Switch 1 games. So that's always pretty awesome, especially concerning for the fact that Nintendo is not afraid to able to actually skip over the backwards compatibility systems. Well, at least generally for the sake of time anyway, because unlike the forms of how it does it in certain PlayStation systems, ranging from, let's just say, PS4 does not support backwards compatibility with retro discs with PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 3 games, although they certainly do have backwards compatibility games these days, specifically digital stuff only, for the likes of certain PlayStation 1 stuff and certain PlayStation 2 stuff, and especially noticeable with some PlayStation 3 stuff, while it's only accessible for the sake of PlayStation Now services and stuff like that, which I will admit though right away is a bit overly redundant, because as far as I'm aware, we've got the majority of the forms of certain PlayStation 3 stuff in the past, and especially noticeable concerning for the fact that after all, we've got every single Sonic games to be released on not only for the Xbox 360, but as well as the forms of, well, the PlayStation 3 as well. So either way though, apart from few exceptions on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, although mind you, probably because no matter what though, we are still waiting for the final results of the forms of the final batch of Switch games before we move on to the Switch successor at some point. So anyways though, I digress though. There's also another thing worth noting for, actually, relatively speaking though, out of nowhere, we're about to be receiving the forms of this very strange collaboration with the forms of not only for Sonic Dash, but with Beyblade X. So, yeah, it seems kind of odd, especially concerning for the fact that it's obviously going to be one of those collaborations they somehow brought us into, and no matter what though, I don't think there's going to be any cosmetic characters with this thing, but it did say, for the sake of the captions anyway, that it did say 3, 2, 1, rip, let it rip, and collect Beyblade X tops on track to unlock great prizes each day. So yeah, that's as far as we can able to say about the forms of this particular confirmation about the forms of this particular collaboration with Sonic Dash and that particular Hasbro thing. So anyways, speaking of something related to Donkey Kong Country Returns HD though, that it may look like about the fact that, well, in Nintendo of America, there's going to be a pre-order bonus item if you do manage to pre-order Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. And what item does it bring? Well, it's going to bring us into the DK Barrel pen holder. It is available exclusively as a free gift when you pre-order with the forms of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Game will be at participate in GameStop locations. So, and this stylish barrel can hold pens, pencils, and more. So, nothing ordinary, but it does look pretty cool, aesthetically speaking. Well, I really do hope about the fact that they'll try to have that for other pre-orders aside from GameStop, but we shall see what happens. So, anyways though, let's turn into Super Knuckles right here, so we are actually become, well, almost pinkish, but on top of all that stuff, that we can climb walls a bit faster, and generally speaking, we are invincible. So, I digress. So, let's just go and climb to this wall here to wait for that particular platform to arise. So, yeah, everything else is pretty much accounted for, basically. So, either way, though, I was gonna say for this point, Knuckles, I really do enjoy your specific production for that particular conversation about the forms of news, topics, and everything else like that. Well, mind you, at this point in time, Pauline, there's nothing else I can really speak about, apart from the fact that, of course, next month is gonna be the Game Awards, which is the final gaming event is gonna be up. So, anyway. And I just want to say, I am very appreciated. I would love to be able to join in with the rest of the crew with the Maxi Toys group. So, yeah, that's as far as I can really think about it. Yeah, because I'd like to thank you to join me for this particular part, Pauline. And I'm sure enough, though, you are more than welcome to join into the actual channel. Well, thanks, Knuckles. I appreciate about that. So I'll see you guys soon. Yep, thank you, Pauline, for joining the video. So speaking of which, though, let's go ahead and end things up this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic & Knuckles standalone version. Is that we're going to go on to the next zone, which is Sandopolis Zone as Knuckles. So yeah, I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later, fellas.